Speaker Johnson not having the House in session, that is not a power play. It is a sign of weakness. It shows that he knows that he's on the wrong side of the American people.
Welcome to Twig and Jenkins. We are back, and as promised, we have a bonus episode with U.S. Senator Andy Kim. Twig and I got in an Uber. We went down to the Senate Hart Building. They let us in. I don't know why. And we spoke to the senator about the government shutdown and how we can all be a part of ending this shit and protecting Americans from rising healthcare costs. Please subscribe on all the things, Spotify, YouTube, and we'll be back next week. Thank you all.
First off, thank you for having us. This is so cool, man.
Yeah, no, look, welcome to my office. I'm happy. I'm proud to be able to serve. But as you said, it's just been, since the day of my swearing in, it's just been nonstop crisis after crisis, and then just to see us in such a debacle right now where we can't even keep the government open because we have a administration and Republican leaders here who just honestly simply don't like to govern at all and don't respect our government and our public servants. So it's been tough.
What's the simplest explanation for why we're in a government shutdown?
Well, the simplest explanation for this is that Trump and the Republicans refuse to govern. We don't have right now 3 functioning branches of government. We have one branch of government, the executive branch, that is trying to dominate and bend the other 2 branches of government to their will. So that's the constitutional crisis that we're in. This government shutdown is a result of a constitutional crisis. Trump, by saying he doesn't want to deal with the Democrats, did not want to negotiate, did not want to sit down and talk until just the day before the shutdown happened, and that was clearly just performative theater to him. And I hope the American people see that, because I know that Speaker Johnson and others are spewing these lies, trying to pit it on the Democrats. But I think the clearest example of who's at fault is the fact that Speaker Johnson doesn't even have the House of Representatives in session right now. So I'm here at the Capitol. You all are here at the Capitol. You're here even though House Republicans are not here. And I hope the American people see that, and I hope they understand that that's not right. We're in a crisis. Our troops are not getting paid. Our government employees are not getting paid. But who is getting paid? Our members of Congress, including the Republicans that aren't even bothering to do their job. And I'll be honest with you, when I talk to our troops, other government employees, they find it so offensive that the president and the members of Congress get paid even if they're not showing up to work.
It's incredible. You've been doing these incredible diner, what do you call them?
Yeah. Well, I don't call them anything in particular other than just if you're not having a conversation at a diner in New Jersey, is it really a conversation?
True. Very good point.
Really?
You should start your own show. It's like Diner, Dives, and Andy Kim, essentially. Is this
Guy
show.
Fieri's been very successful.
It's been so successful.
Yeah. If
Well,
only
it's
someone
been
thought of that
beautiful, man.
before.
It's been you going to diners and hearing directly from the people, from New Jerseyans in this moment, and healthcare keeps being brought up. And you have been telling us about how Democrats need to stay focused on healthcare for over a year now, right? And finally, I do think, thank you, slightly rolling my eyes at Democratic leadership, for finally having some focus here, because you, in these beautiful videos and these beautiful diner town halls, you're hearing directly what this shutdown means for people who need healthcare in this moment.
Yeah, look, it's by far the top thing that we keep hearing about. Healthcare is on everyone's mind. And right now, everyone in this country is talking about healthcare. And I think that that's exactly what we wanted to happen by shining a light through this shutdown to set the stakes and saying at a time when this president is literally leading a corrupt regime that is trying to profit off of the Oval Office, that they're focused on that. They're focused on the tax cuts to the billionaires. So it's not just the fact that people's healthcare costs are potentially going to double, triple. It's the question of why is that happening?
Yeah.
And in the same way that with the reconciliation bill, they're trying to gut Medicaid to be able to give tax cuts to the billionaires. Same thing's happening when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. Same thing's happening when it comes to prescription drug costs and other things that are out there. So we need to make sure that the American people see that they are who we're standing with, and that we don't see this as just some political tug of war.
Yeah.
Like, this can't be something that we're doing because we got to raise the reputation of the Democratic Party or something. That cannot be the motivating
Yes.
factor.
Agreed.
Because if so, then the Americans have every bit as much right to be as cynical and distrusting of government as they often are, as am I. What we need to show is that we're trying to be responsive to people directly. And when I went to the diner and sat down with people who are worried about their health care, and these were not just Democrats, I actually remember one independent voter, I said to her, what would you say to Donald Trump if you had a chance to do so? And she said, I would tell him, this is our money. It's the American people's money. It's not Donald Trump's personal bank account. This is not something where he can use a slush fund to dole out to, his donors and his buddies. It's not something where he can withhold funding to incredibly important projects like the Gateway Tunnel project that affects so many in New Jersey. He can't just hold that back because he's angry and he wants to seek political retribution. Like, he's not a mob boss. We have to be able to govern. And I just thought it was like a really powerful message. But it was important for me to hear that directly from the people.
For so many people, I think, that are paying attention to politics. We know that a bunch of people aren't, and we're all trying to figure out how to get more people to pay closer attention to what's happening in their government. But for the people who are, the constant refrain that I hear is that they want their elected leaders to really push back, to stand up and fight, to have a strategy, to get caught trying. Is what's happening in the shutdown, or do you feel like there's unity amongst the Senate caucus, or the House Dems and the Senate Dems working together? Like, do you think that there's a unified approach, or is it sort of you're building the plane as it's flying because nobody wanted the shutdown in the first place?
No, look, I think that by virtue of the fact of where you see us at, we see that we cannot be complicit in this lawlessness. I simply cannot give my vote to fund this level of danger to our country that is making it harder for Americans, millions of Americans, to get health care. The fact that up to 4.5 million people could lose their health care in the coming months if we don't fix this problem. Over 20 million could face doubling or tripling of prices.
That's huge.
Huge. This is an absolute catastrophe, and I have to look out for them. And again, why is that happening? It's because they're funding Black Hawk helicopters over the skies of Chicago. These ICE raids that are just attacking American communities. And why? Because the commander-in-chief said to 800 generals, I want American cities to be the training ground for our military. Like we cannot continue on with this. So yes, I'm proud of the Senate Democrats that we are standing in the breach. There are only 40 some of us, and we are the ones that are trying to say this is the wrong track for our country. We have to shift. And look, do I wish we had more levers? Do I wish we had the majority? Of course. But we have to be able to say, not just to ourselves, but to our constituents, that we're doing everything humanly possible to be able to change this.
Thinking about people who don't know what the hell is going on, I would include myself in that, because what happens now? How do you all come together and find a resolution? Because there's a small part of me that just thinks, Republicans don't mind the government not working. Republicans don't mind or don't care about all of these workers that we're just describing who are really feeling it each and every day. How do we come together? How do we solve this? Who blinks first, do you think?
Well, look, the main tool here that needs to be thought of is just how we mobilize and bear down the pressure from the American people.
Yeah.
They need to be in the room. They cannot feel like, this is just happening. And this is, why I said it's important that we don't think about it. For instance, I talked with a bunch of federal workers at the diner, and I asked them, like, what would you want to say to Trump and leaders? And one of them said, like, I want to say we're not pawns. Like that, like, and I think when they see members of Congress and the president getting a paycheck, even though they're not, it feels like the people making the decisions are playing with other people's chips.
Yes.
And so that's why, I wanted to make sure that I say publicly that, like, I'm not taking the paycheck as long as this shutdown happens. I think it's offensive that members of Congress and the president, like, who leads by taking a paycheck when everybody else does? Like, I thought it was always like, the captain's the last one off the ship or things like that, right? So there's that aspect of it, but actually bringing their voice into this. And I do think that it's meaningful. I mean, look, I was sworn in to Congress back in 2019 during another shutdown that Trump was the president at the time. So I saw how it affected him. I saw how, like the pressure that can come down from the American people just saying, enough, this cannot go on. And right now, I feel that pressure coming from the American. I mean, you hear it from Republicans.
Yeah.
There are over. There were a group of 10 House Republicans that a couple weeks ago came out publicly saying we want to see extensions of the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
Like, that's why Speaker Johnson is not bringing the House back into session. Is he knows that if there is an actual vote on the floor of the House of Representatives, that this effort that we're pushing for to extend these subsidies for healthcare and keep people's costs low, it would pass.
Yeah.
Even Marjorie Taylor Greene just came out in favor of extending the ACA subsidies because it's affecting her own kids, her own family.
Yeah.
Like, it's affecting everybody. And in fact, it's actually affecting far more people in states that voted for Trump than states that voted for Kamala. But again, we're not the party that's going to play political favorites. We're just trying to help Americans at a time where, the Trump is saying, "Oh, I'm going to cut off funding to blue states," and I think that that's where the American people need to draw the line. Just say, like, no. So look, I don't know all of what happens next, and that's challenging. But I'm going to try to do my best to continue to keep this pressure up. Continue to look out for our federal workers and make sure that they don't just feel like they're taken for granted. I'm actually one of the very few career civil servants in Congress. Like, I worked under multiple shutdowns before. I showed up to work without getting a paycheck. Like, I know that challenge. So, in particular, I want to make sure I am somebody that lifts up, what they're going through right now too.
So you are here in your office, your staff is here, like, we came in, your staff is great, by the way, everyone was so helpful.
So great.
There's not that many people in the building, right? There's some people here. What is the Senate doing, right? What do you do during a shutdown? Like, as a senator, what are you up to?
Yeah, well, look, most of what we're doing right now is about trying to engage one another. And I will say I have had some conversations with my Republican colleagues, about what they think comes next and whatnot. Look, did we go into as much detail as I would like? No. But I think that that's the right thing to do. Again, at the diner, this one woman said what she wants is to have adults in the room, sitting down with one another, even when they're disagreeing. And they go into the room knowing full well that they're not going to get 100% of what they want. There's so much that I wish we could stop with this administration. Do I think we're going to be able to get 100% of it? No. And that's why, not only through this effort, but we need to be able to, win the governorship in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So we have that angle. We need to take back, the majorities in Congress next year. Like, we need to do that to be able to get further along. But I'm prepared to talk and engage and see if there's an approach. And I will say a number of my Republican senators are telling me, like, they support extending the ACA subsidies for health care. So then what's the problem?
Right.
Like, let's find a solution to this. Again, the problem, though, is it's hard to have a negotiation with people in the same room if they're not even in the building, if they're not even in town. And, like, how can I negotiate with only one part of the Congress when the other is completely absent. And that's why, the Speaker Johnson's actions are so dangerous and reckless, is because he's trying to silence his members that he knows support what it is we're trying to do. And he's holding up those negotiations, and it's making things all the more difficult because what we're doing, it's not just about passing something in the Senate. We need something that can pass the House. Well, we don't know what's going to pass the House because none of them are here. We can't even talk to them.
Right.
It's one thing I don't think is being said enough is that piece that Republicans are not here, and I'm reminded of the last time you were on the pod, you had just come from these incredible town hall meetings where you were going to Republican districts because Republican members of Congress in New Jersey were refusing to do town halls. And you were going in red parts of New Jersey and being welcomed and being thanked for just having a conversation and showing up. And so I think that, for us, Twig and I, and for others who are trying to figure out, like, how can we really push people in the right way, I think that that's a huge one. The fact that Republicans are not even showing up in this moment. They're not even willing to have a conversation.
Yeah, and look, there was just this interview with, there was a C-SPAN call-in show interview with Speaker Johnson, and a woman called in saying that she's a Republican, she's a military spouse, and she's furious at Speaker Johnson for saying that, he won't consider, paying our troops through a shutdown. And, she's like, get the House of Representatives back to work. I mean, she's a Republican. She's like, what are you doing? I mean, the fact that, the two of you have now successfully spent more time here at the Capitol than over 200 Republicans have, in the last,
Let's go.
like literally, it's been about 20 days since they've shown up to work. The two of you now, like I said, you've spent more time.
So do we get a pin, Andy?
Right.
What's going on here? No, I'm kidding.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of empty offices.
I think at some point you can just take over. I think it's like squatters' rights.
Yeah,
at
right.
Some point, they're not using it. It's got to go to somebody.
Perfect. When we were at the threshold of a shutdown in the spring, one of the things that prevented us from shutting down and promoted compromise, so to speak, was Trump's threat that he was going to use the shutdown to dismantle what was left of the federal government, right? Shut down agencies, mass firings. We've already seen him shut down funding for projects. Can you give us just a sense of how much of that is happening this time, why that was less of a concern this time than it was last time, and if they're actually able to do all of that, or if it's just more theater?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here that we've come to see. First of all, where we're at now compared to where we were at in February and March, what we see is that they've already been shutting it all down.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been basically in a constant state of rolling shutdown in the same way of rolling blackouts. It's just they've been shutting down the government since January 20th. And I think that that's something that the American people see. And when Trump says we're going to do mass firings, we're like, look, you've already been illegally doing mass firings. And I think the other thing that has happened, though, is I think the Republicans are stressed and strained right now because of the contradictory nature of their message. They're simultaneously saying, oh, we don't want to shut down because government's important, while they're saying, oh, we're going to do mass firings and getting rid of programs because they've been spending the whole year saying, government's not working.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it's kind of backfiring on them. I think they're realizing that you cannot simultaneously hold a position of saying that you're trying to stop the government from shutting down when you've been also threatening mass firings and saying that, Trump saying that good things can happen in a shutdown, as they're trying to dismantle government. And I think that that's what's being exposed right now to the American people. People are like, oh, wait, actually, they are gleeful and celebrating this shutdown. Yeah. Of course it's their fault. Of course they're the ones that are to blame because, look how much they're celebrating it right now.
All right, so the millions of Twig and Jenkins fans.
Yeah.
There are so many.
Plural,
countless.
millions.
So many millions.
Yeah.
We just started season 2. People demanded Senator Kim. We're delivering Senator Andy Kim.
Oh yeah, my mom was calling in and
Yeah, your mom,
speaking.
exactly. And the children, both your sons were calling in.
Yeah.
What do we tell them to do in this moment? We know that there's a big No Kings protest coming up again. For people in New Jersey, there's obviously the huge governor's race that's coming up that also is hugely consequential. Yeah. We know there's all this incredible advocacy and work around gerrymandering and fighting back against what's taking place. But what can the average New Jerseyan do right now in this moment?
Well, look, I would say anyone. We'll say anybody. Well, first and foremost, yes, New Jersey, Virginia, hugely important races.
Yeah.
And I will say they're not just important for Virginia and New Jersey, they're important for the entire country. I mean, this is going to set the tone and the momentum for the 2026 midterms. You know, which party has, the wind behind them. And I say that as someone who ran for Congress in a midterm during Trump's first administration. Like, what happened in New Jersey and Virginia gave us a lot of boost coming out of it. So I would just say to people, like, get engaged. Like, if you live in those states or nearby, show on up. Even if you're not there, you can sign up and make phone calls. Go find the campaign info for Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill. These are actually two people that I came into Congress with. I know them well.
That. Yeah.
I'm excited for them. They're going to be great governors. But I say that because I hear from people. They're like, oh well, I've never done this stuff before. I remember there was a woman in my first race. She came up to me. She's like, I'm nervous. I never knocked doors before. I never made phone calls before. I never chipped in money to a campaign before. And I was like, well, I never ran for Congress before. We're all doing things that are uncomfortable. But that's the point, right? Is like, and I think you've heard me say this before, like, if you're only having comfortable conversations in politics, it means you're not talking to all the people you need to be talking to. So I just ask people if you can make some phone calls for these races. If you can, adopt a candidate for the 2026 race.
Yeah.
Unless people got billions of dollars, they support all the candidates, go at it. But if not, focus on one or two of them and really try to help them out, even if it's not from your own state. And what I would also say is find a community you can do this alongside. I just feel like that's so key, because if you're only operating out of a sense of fear and anger, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the people that I found to be most successful in sustaining their engagement in politics are people that are able to find others to do it alongside. And not only is that just more communal, but it actually often makes them even better, because they are just constantly working with people to sharpen their skills, to push them to run for school board or local mayor. I mean, it's awesome to see in my some of the volunteers that came together for my first campaign 8 years ago. They're now leading community groups. Some of them have run for office themselves.
Wow.
It's awesome to see just this, this army that's now battle hardened. And look, yes, we're tired, we're exhausted, but we are resolute in recognizing that this is such a dangerous moment. These next 3 years are unfortunately going to shape 3 decades and more, and we need to really make sure that we are doing everything possible to be able to shape the kind of America that our kids and grandkids are growing up in.
Oh, so good. I'm fired up. I don't even know how. I feel like that's a mic drop moment.
I know. Did you see? I just called it. I don't even know that we're out of time. But I was just like, what's
we're
left,
just done.
bro?
I think we
Just
are.
roll the credits.
Well, here's the thing. People don't realize, off camera, the senator's staff is in the back here, and they're going to give us the hook because you have a vote, correct? You have a vote.
We have more votes coming up.
More votes coming up.
Yeah, and
so you guys are
look,
working.
Well, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared to stay here as long as needed. And I think that's what the American people are demanding of us. That we should be able to reflect. I mean, you were saying how it's quiet here and whatnot. That's what's so frustrating. Is this building should be operating with the level of urgency that these families that are trying to figure out if they're going to get a paycheck on the 15th are operating at, or at the level of urgency of these families that are getting their new healthcare bill and realizing that they're going to have to pay 2 to 3 times more, and how are they going to do that when they're trying to pay their rent or their mortgage?
Yeah.
Like, we should be operating at that level of urgency. But the idea that, again, they can just get a paid vacation or take a long weekend off, holiday weekend, like, we'll just take note. Like, this is real. This is dangerous.
I remember when we were staffers and we were in the shutdown, the Obama era, like having to call my parents and ask them for money because we weren't getting paid. And it was like really, really stressful. And every day staffers were like getting together to figure out like who's offering half price on meals or like who has food, who has rich parents, like how are we going to try and make it through this? Because we had no idea how long it was going to go on. You eventually might get back pay, but like that still has how do you make it? We were all living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, it was a scary moment. People don't realize, even at the White House, right, where you're thinking these people have these fancy positions, it's like, no, a lot of these people are young. A lot of these people don't have rich parents. A lot of these people are not making much money.
Well, they used to not.
Used to not.
I don't know about anymore.
Now they're.
But no, it's real. I totally agree. It's real. So we're 9 days in. Not to sound like a sports podcaster here, but if you had to put a bet on how long this is going to last, the longest shutdown was something like 30 some days, right? It was like
35 days. Or that was the 2019 one under Trump.
That's right. How long do you think this one goes? Is there a comparison you feel like?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, look, part of the challenge here is, in 2019, the dynamic that shifted halfway through the shutdown is that Democratic House majority was sworn in.
Oh, that's right.
So we had a Democratic speaker. We had a sizable majority.
Yeah.
We don't have that on the horizon right now. So that's all the more reason why we need the American people to really speak out.
Yeah.
And so speak out as in the lead up to these elections in these states. Speak out around. Lift up and amplify the messaging that me and others are trying to do here to get people's attention. Because if people are not paying attention to this, Donald Trump thinks he can just ignore it. It's like it's not just about attention; it's about sustained attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what the problem is, the muscle memory of my colleagues here is to just wait. Because I'll give you an example. I've been here in Congress for almost 7 years. I cannot even count the number of mass shootings that have happened in this country while I've been in office, because it's just been so painful. But what I see time after time is that a mass shooting will happen. There'll be some attention about trying to move forward on gun violence prevention. And my colleagues that don't want to see things happen, they just wait.
Right.
They just wait it out.
Wait it out.
And they're like, the life cycle is going to dip, and we can just move on to the next crisis that happens in America. And we just need to make sure that this doesn't fall in that same vein. But I have seen circumstances where people sustained attention.
Yeah.
After the Uvalde shooting, people sustained attention. They were like, these children that are younger than my kids, you're younger than your kids, Brad.
Yeah.
That they got massacred, and people stood up, including a lot of Republican families from Texas, and they sustained that attention, and we actually moved forward on some legislation. Did it fix everything? No, but it was the largest law that was passed on preventing gun violence in over 20 years.
Amazing.
So we just need to sustain this attention.
Yeah.
People if people are getting their health care through the exchange, as you get the information over the next couple of days about how much it's going to go up, put it online if you're comfortable with it. Share it with your members of Congress, regardless of which side of the aisle they're at. That needs to be out there. These 4.5 million Americans that could very well lose their health care. The over 20 million Americans that could see their prices double, triple. They need to be loud. And the rest of us need to say, hey, look, that affects us too. Even if we're not getting it to care through, that's going to raise all of our healthcare costs, especially when Medicaid's being gutted. That's going to just pose a huge burden upon all of us. And I think that that is, what I'm just asking and just begging people to do is, this is not a moment to be a bystander. This is not a moment to sit on the sidelines. Like, this is the fight.
This is it.
And if everyone goes down quietly, what do you think that's going to mean to Trump? Trump's going to be like, oh, well, I can just get away with anything now. He already feels that way.
Totally.
And we need to be able to draw the line. And if we can punch back on this, it will expose a lot of the hollowness of what they have going on. They are weaker than they think that they are. They are weaker than they perceive. You see that right now. Like Speaker Johnson not having the House in session, that is not a power play. It is a sign of weakness. It shows that he knows that he's on the wrong side of the American people, and he's just trying to slide on through.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I take away a lot from that, saying okay, well, game on. Let's make sure we push harder.
Well, Senator, your team is going to give you the hook. I think you have to do a vote. I just want to thank you, because I feel like, you see it in polls, but you also just feel it. The American people, it's a very scary time for so many communities. And what they've been looking for are Democrats and senators like yourself who are fighting. And you, since you've been the U.S. Senator of New Jersey, have been fighting every single day, man. So thank you so much.
Thanks, my
We
friend.
appreciate you letting us hang out and letting us be, I guess we're now Congresspeople. I guess we can
Cool.
just go take someone's office.
Thank you,
No,
Senator.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on over and helping get the word out about how important this moment is. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.